This year's Nobel Peace Prize is awarded to 2 organizations and 1 individual. The individual is Ales Bielatsky. He is from Belarus and he has received the prize for standing up against dictatorship in his country and promoting freedom, human rights and rule of law. Memorial is an organization based in Russia and have been active for more than 40 years. They have documented abuse of power and human rights abuses back to the Stalinist era and up until recent time, for example, the Chechen wars. The Center for Civil Liberties is based in Ukraine, and they have also shifted their attention to document violations and war crimes in the ongoing war in Ukraine. Previously, they have also worked very hard to develop the fragile democracy in Ukraine. Now, why have these 2 organizations and Mr. Bielatsky received the Nobel Peace Prize together? Yes, that is because they represent civil society, an independent voice standing up against authority and working hard and relentlessly for values that they believe in.
You just heard Berit Reiss-Andersen, the chairman of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, talk about this year's winners and talk about why they won. Now I am going to ask Asle Toje some questions about the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. Do you have an example of how Nobel laureates have been opposed by their own governments?
Well, a great many Nobel Peace Prize laureates have been opposed by their own governments. But this maybe most famous one is a man called Karl von Ossietzky, who received the prize in 1936, who was tortured to death in Hitler's concentration camps. Later, in 1991, Aung San Suu Kyi from Myanmar received the prize while she was imprisoned. Again, in 2010, Liu Xiaobo, the Chinese dissident, was in so-called house arrest. He died in house arrest. It was really prison, persecuted by his own government. But only last year, we had 2 laureates, Dmitry Muratov and Maria Ressa, who are both journalists, who have both received much punishment from their own governments in the year that has passed. And let's not forget this year's laureate, Ales Bielatsky, who's a Belarusian human rights activist who's currently imprisoned, and he has spent much of the past 15 years behind bars for no other crime than speaking his mind.
Related to Ales Bielatsky, he is imprisoned now, as we know, and he received the Nobel Peace Prize. How do you think the government is reacting to this? How do you think this will affect his sentence?
Well, this is a difficult one. We spent very much time discussing this in the committee because it's not necessarily so that the most hopeful alternative that the Belarusian government actually releases him and allows him to come to Oslo to receive the prize. They might also make his conditions harder and harsher. He's not in good health as it is, and we can only hope that President Lukashenko in Belarus comes to his senses and releases this prisoner of conscience so that he can come to Oslo and receive the Nobel Peace Prize.
Or at least maybe lessen his sentence by a few years?
Anything would help, but as the committee leader said, we hope that he will be released.
At least the good part of this is that it's bringing attention to him, and therefore pressure to the government.
Let's hope so. So I hope that everybody will keep their eyes open, and some might even be inclined to write to the Belarusian government to encourage them to release Ales Bielatsky. He definitely does not deserve to be in prison. He's a good man.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.